a little hoot. And now, from a lonely little corner of the Bronx.
This is so. Because just when you think American politics has hit the ceiling of absurdity, kind of like a raccoon learning how to use a flamethrower, we get a sitting president feuding with the Pope. Yeah, that Pope. Not like a local bishop, not like the guy who throws a potluck supper at church and criticizes your potato salad. No, the Pope, the CEO of Catholicism, the spiritual leader of over 1 billion people, the one guy on earth that can wear a 40-pound hat and still look underdressed for the job. And this one, Pope Leo XIV, the first American Pope, which is kind of weird anyway, because you just know there's some guy in Chicago who's going, hey, wait, the Pope's from here? Does he owe me $20? Because you know what? He just might. Because this Pope, in my head, is such a regular guy, like...
They're 2 strikes away from a win here in 2005 in Game 1 with Jenks on the mound. And
there he is! Pope Leo, dressed in a White Sox jersey with his windbreaker over it because, you know, it's October in Chicago, muttering something like, these umpires are a sin against God. That was 2005. Here he is as a young priest in the 90s when he was hanging out with the kids when he did his missionary work in Peru. Now, here's Donald Trump hanging out with the kids in the 90s.
A tape in the NBC archives of a Mar-a-Lago party shows Trump giving Epstein his personal attention. The footage, shot in November of 1992, before Trump opened the resort as a club, shows the future president surrounded by cheerleaders for the Buffalo Bills and Miami Dolphins, capturing Trump's fun-loving bachelor lifestyle.
Got back to reality, because this isn't just a weird cultural mashup. This is a real escalating conflict.
Quote, Leo should get his act together as Pope, use common sense, stop catering to the radical left, and focus on being a great Pope, not a politician.
The president posts a direct attack on the Pope.
He's a man that doesn't think that we should be toying with a country that wants a nuclear weapon so they can blow up the world. I'm not a fan of Pope Leo.
Weak on crime and terrible on foreign policy. Again, the Pope. Weak on crime. What does that even mean? Like the Vatican is supposed to have their own SWAT team? Freeze! The rosary! And then, of course, Trump adds, I don't want a Pope who's weak on crime and thinks it's okay for Iran to have a nuclear weapon. Which is interesting because that is not what the Pope said. What the Pope said was in a Palm Sunday homily.
Brothers and sisters, this is our God, Jesus, King of Peace, who rejects war, whom no one can use to justify war. He does not listen to the prayers of those who wage war, but rejects them, saying, even though you make many prayers, I will not listen.
That is not a policy white paper. That is God basically hanging up the phone on you, Donald. And after Trump posted that a whole civilization will die if Iran didn't comply, the Pope replied in the most polite Catholic way possible, said, what are you doing? He called the threat unacceptable, which, again, in Pope language translates to, sir, this is a moral disaster. And here's the important part. This is not politics. The Pope is not making a partisan argument. He is restating long-standing Catholic teaching that defending people is one thing, is morally different, that war does not make any action permissible.
I do not look at my role as being political or politician. I don't want to get into a debate with him. I don't think that the message of the gospel is meant to be abused in the way that some people are doing. And I will continue to speak out loudly against war, looking to promote peace, promoting dialogue and multilateral relationships among the states, to look for just solutions to problems. Too many people are suffering in the world today. Too many innocent people are being killed. And I think someone has to stand up and say, there's a better way to do this.
Just because you started a fire, Donald, does not mean you get to burn down the neighborhood. Because after all that, he posts an AI image of himself as Jesus. Now, imagine that, but with a red tie and a subpoena somewhere in the background. glowing hands, healing a man in a hospital bed. And then he takes it down and he says, no. That's not Jesus. That's me as a doctor. Sir, you once looked directly into a camera and told us to inject bleach in our butts to cure COVID. You are not a doctor. What happens when the YouTube comment section becomes human? And the Pope, to his credit, does not respond with memes. He responds like a Pope, a man who knows his boss is literally God. You cannot intimidate someone who reports to the final authority. And now, enter J.D. Vance. Yes, J.D., the man who converted to Catholicism in 2019, which basically makes him a freshman in theology. Suddenly he's being asked to mediate between the Pope and Trump. This is like asking a guy who just got his driver's permit to mediate in a 16-car pileup. And Vance, instead of picking a side, says, "Oh, really, J.D., the Pope should be careful about theology?" That is like telling a surgeon, "Hey, be careful with that scalpel." Or telling a shark, "You're being a little aggressive in the water, aren't you?" And now, here's where it gets interesting. The reason this bothers Trump so much is because he might have believed he had won not just a political argument, but a moral one. That is, ruthlessness, dominance, crackdowns were not just effective, but right. And then enter a Pope from America with equal stature, saying no, charity, restraint, peace. And suddenly there is a competition for the moral narrative. And that drives him crazy. Because you can argue policy, but when someone walks in with 2,000 years of moral authority and says, this is wrong, that's a different fight. And honestly, at this point, why stop there? Let's just fully commit. Let's create America's own Pope. I give you Pope J.D. Vance I. The anti-Pope. Cut to a ceremony somewhere in a mega church / Apple Store hybrid. Vance walks in wearing a mitre of red baseball caps, and they place a copy of Hillbilly Elegy in his palm. A choir sings. But no, it's just podcast intro music. And then Trump appears, floating, glowing, still insisting that he is a doctor. And Vance declares, "From this day forward, I will interpret the teachings of Christ, as long as they poll well." And the crowd goes wild because that is where we are. A real Pope talking about morality, war, the sanctity of life, and a president posting AI Jesus selfies of himself, basically arguing that he's Doogie Howser. But maybe somewhere in Chicago, the Pope is watching a White Sox game and muttering, "Father, forgive them. They don't even understand the rules of baseball, let alone war." And honestly, at this point, he might be the only adult left in the room. So that's all for us today here at PolitiHoot. Please leave a like or subscribe to the show or leave a comment below. You can also go to our Facebook page at PolitiHoot and check into Podline FM. You then can record your own voice and leave your own message that we might play on the show. Love to hear what you think.
PolitiHoot!